We had a request for a demonstration or a conversation about putting feet or a kind of making an elevated form when you're building a hand-built form. You know, a lot of times when we build hand-built forms, we're building on this flat surface, so the bottom is flat, right? Like on this cylinder. So I've just mocked up a quick cylinder just to have this conversation. In its simplest technique, one would overlap a small band of clay and then cut it at an angle so this miters together really well, right? So we overlap it and then we cut through at that angle, and so that we could press this together, and this can make a simple slab built foot, and then it can be slip and scored once it's leather hard onto this cylinder. Now, things on feet, they look a little more elevated. They look sometimes a little more lively. There's a little more movement or air underneath them. So adding a foot to a hand-built form can be a really nice thing. So this could be done as a coil. It could be done taller. It could be done in less diameter. You know, you want to take things into consideration if it's functional, that it doesn't tip over and things like that. You know, there are, of course, a magnitude of like creative ideas you could come up with too. You know, we were messing around with press molds. So could I use a press mold material or a press molded object, right? Like the idea of making these cars into the quote unquote foot of this piece, right? That could be a potential solution. The point is that anything that kind of anchors a vessel or gets it up in the air off of the flat table working surface could be considered a foot. And there are a myriad of creative, you know, concepts or ideas out there that we could kind of come up with and think about. That's kind of a cool look. You know, and then also you want to think about, well, wait a minute. I could choose to make a form that actually, maybe my form lays down, right? Maybe this whole thing gets placed on these things like this. And it's not a cylinder in its traditional kind of, you know, orientation for that matter. The other thing I want you to consider when thinking about the foot or the bottom of something is that we don't necessarily have to build in or on, excuse me, a flat surface. We could build in something that we've already prepared, and we've talked about press molds. So here, what I did here is I jammed some clay into a press mold, and so this is a way different way to think about the bottom of something. It's not really adding a foot, but it's creating some interest on the bottom. So I built this little vase inside of the the fist press mold, and you know, it's probably barely recognizable, but you know, at the same time could be a whole idea for creating something that has kind of a different foot area. All right, so you know, from real simple, you know, whether it's just a ring of a slab, could be a ring of a coil, that could be a really simple way to add a foot to your hand-built form. And that's whether it's, you know, a round form or a cylindrical form or a square form, whatever it may be. Or, you know, maybe you prepare something and you make a press mold out of it, and that becomes what you build out of, and that becomes kind of the bottom or the foot that you end up utilizing. So I think anytime we think about things, it's good to think about them in a more simple sense, but then also to get creative.